Oh yeah, we're live. Okay, cool. All right, here comes the part where I dick around for a second while I wait for people to actually show up. So I'm not just talking to dead air. I'm gonna hydrate while we hydrate. I should crop this part of the stream off. Good evening, yay, there's people. All right, I hope you all missed the very bad wordplay. Oh, we're opening with cat emojis. I love this. Okay, before I get cracking, I just want to say, like, thank you, everybody. This is the 5th Sex Witch stream. I've been doing this every weekend continuously for over a month now. This is halfway to double digits. Just the other day, I sent out the first batch of, like, stickers of the month for people who are at the $10 Patreon level. Like, this is starting to feel like a very real thing. This first month has been dope as hell, and the response has been fantastic, and I'm really appreciative of all of you. We had our first guest. I don't know how I forgot that. That was an absolute smashing success, I think. You know, like, in my own humble opinion, I think we did really good. So that's good stuff, you know. It's back to just me this week. I missed Jacqueline already, but we're gonna power through. And we're gonna, oh, Mary, thank you for waking up from a nap for this. Such a weird number of people tell me every week I woke up from a nap to watch this, or like I woke up from sleeping for this, or put off sleep if they're in a like vastly different time zone. And I appreciate you, but I also question what's up, because like this is still gonna be here to watch whenever you want, that you don't have to like go out of your way to wake up for. So that's like a heck of a commitment you're making. I wouldn't wake up for me probably, but I appreciate how you're choosing to use your time. Okay, so it is more fun to watch live. I can't agree with that. And I love having you all here live. I've noted, like, it's been so cool watching each week, like more and more people in the chat, and the chat being like more and more active. And I appreciate that a lot, because I feel like this would be a much more boring thing both to do and to watch later if I didn't have like something live to bounce off of, you know? So like having you guys here, like chiming in, asking questions, having input, relating, like finding ways that you have things in common with each other. Like that's really cool. And I really, really love that. And this is a really tight, neat little community we have here. I think I said this last time, or I've definitely said this prior, but like I really enjoy seeing the Tumblr community that I've made over like 4 years spill onto a new platform. I appreciate that you're having fun trying to surprise me. It's very easy. Half the things y'all say just floor me. So womp womp. I never know where any of you are going, and it keeps me on my toes as an educator. So we're like a whole 3 minutes, and I'm going to go ahead and get talking. Tonight, as I've made absolutely no secret of, we're going to be talking about something that some of you might have already heard me talk about a lot, depending on how closely you keep up with my sex ed tag, and might already be very tired of hearing me talking about it, depending on how much you keep up with my sex ed tag. Womp womp. And that is orgasms, which I think is kind of a natural topic to get onto if you are talking sex ed. So the gist is going to be, you don't need to use orgasms to measure how good your sex life is. That's it. That's the whole lesson. The stream is over. Who wants to talk about Batman now? No, we're not doing that. You know, there's a lot of baggage to unpack there. And as we've been over, I have made it my mission to unpack all of that deeply, deeply unsexy sexual baggage we have. So let's get cracking. I want to start by saying that I do think everyone, regardless of identity, is taught to think of orgasm as kind of the ultimate measurement of good sex. But there are a lot of problems around that are especially prevalent for vagina owners, and I think particularly cisgender women, just because of the way they're targeted by marketing, because trans and non-binary folks are kind of largely ignored when it comes to commodified sexuality, which is not a privilege. It's just a different kind of bad. But there, you know, for vagina owners, it really gets like shoved down our throats by a capitalist marketing scheme that female sexual empowerment is largely equated with having like the biggest, loudest orgasm imaginable. So tonight's recommended reading is Jacqueline Friedman's book Unscrewed, or if you are more of a listening person than a reading person, her podcast, which is also called Unscrewed, which is very good. If you really can't wait for the sex robot episode that's coming up at the end of this month, she has an episode about that with a very smart guest, and covers pretty different territory than I think my guest and I are going to get into. So if you want like a primer on sex robot stuff, you should definitely check that out. Also, Allison, I see you in the chat. I'm not ignoring you. Hello, my beautiful daughter, child. I'm so glad that you're here and I love you. So whether you pursue the book or the podcast, or neither, I guess, Jacqueline Friedman does a really good job of unpacking the capitalist co-opting of sexual empowerment. Marketed empowerment in and of itself is something that deserves its own stream, and trust me, there absolutely will be one. But much like your favorite eccentric college professor, I'm merely peppering in the hints of anti-capitalism as kind of a foreshadowing to what's going to come later. For now, let's focus strictly on that orgasm thing. So the so-called sexual liberation movement. Oh, wait, sorry. Sidebar. I don't have children. I do have children, but they're just like other gay young adults who are a couple of years younger than me. Sorry, I feel like I've like terribly confused the issue of my family. So there's my dad quote that some of y'all think is hot, and I hate that. And he's just, not just, but like he is my chosen gay father figure. And then my kids are like a series of young gays who are like 3 years younger than me tops. Anyway, let's talk history. So the so-called sexual liberation movement really kicked off in America, at least around the 60s, after the hormonal birth control pill was finally legalized in America after decades of work by pioneers like Margaret Sanger. Safe legal birth control was kind of the final frontier for vagina owners who wanted to engage in casual sex. In generations prior, the often uncontrollable nature of pregnancy, lack of access to safe abortions, sometimes lethal nature of childbirth, and the potentially disastrous social and financial repercussions of unplanned motherhood meant that the cons of casual sex far outweighed the pros if you were a person who could potentially get pregnant. That all changed with the availability of hormonal birth control. And yes, I know obviously that like getting the pill is still a huge pain in the ass compared to like buying a box of condoms. It's not an easy process by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a hell of a lot better than not having any alternatives at all. So birth control hits the market and freewheeling hippie culture is in full swing. By 1967, it's the summer of free love and people are just having sex on the park benches of San Francisco because they've all got the pill. It's no worries anymore. Sexual culture is fixed forever and everything was great. The stream is over. Let's go talk about Batman. Just kidding. Of course, the sexual freedom enabled by the pill also had a dark side because the world is a nightmare and vagina owners can't have anything nice. Quote British journalist Virginia Ironside, pregnancy was no longer a reason to say no to sex. Often it seemed easier and, believe it or not, more polite to sleep with a man rather than chuck him out of your flat. Men continued to satisfy their own needs and never for a moment considered whether the women they were having sex with found it pleasurable or satisfying. Just because women could have safer sex didn't mean they suddenly knew how to have good sex. And let me be clear, I'm not saying that nobody enjoyed sex prior to like 1970. There were marital guides in the Victorian era telling men to go down. But it was patchier. It wasn't a public conversation for sure, and a lot of folks never had access to that information. It's not like the pill comes with a good sex guide. Luckily, capitalism was able to swoop in and save the day on that front. Just look at some of the magazines targeted at cisgender women, particularly the low-hanging fruit like Cosmopolitan. If you do a quick Google search of Cosmo covers, you come up with things like the 7 best orgasm tricks in the world, or You on Top, the fierce new secret to success, or Feel sexier instantly, or Better sex for every reader, or one that just got incredibly to the point and said, feel more pleasure. That's some like really snappy marketing right there. Oh, what do we have over in the chat? The world is a nightmare and vagina owners can't have anything nice. I can't embroider that on a pillow for you because I don't know how to embroider. I'm sorry. I do agree with everyone saying you should check the men out, though. That if they're not being cool, check the men who suck. So obviously, magazine covers have to exaggerate to sell issues, making big sweeping promises that they hype up as being universally effective, which clearly can't be true because if Cosmopolitan had actually found like a fail-proof way for folks with vaginas to feel permanently sexually empowered and have exactly as many orgasms as they want to have every time they have sex, we would all reach orgasm enlightenment and we would never have to buy another magazine offering us weird new sex tips. In case y'all couldn't tell, I'm more than a little skeptical of commodified sexual empowerment for women, mainly because it usually boils down to buy our magazine and try all 50 of these weird sex positions that we made up to fill space. Your sex life isn't good enough. You should be trying hard, or put a donut on your boyfriend's dick, hell, and get more exciting. That is what our friend Jacqueline Friedman calls sexual faux powerment. I can put the book down now. Its purpose as a prop has been served. I lost my spot in the outline. Let's look at the chat while I find it. All the sex tips, because that makes money. Yeah, you've got to fill your space somewhere. Also, Laura, I'm very impressed that you have an embroidery guy. Will your embroidery guy do The World is a Nightmare and vagina owners can't have anything nice on a pillow for you? Because if so, please put me in touch with your embroidery guy. I want in on that. Just kidding. I don't have a job or money to spend on nice pillows. Okay. So like I said, that is what Jacqueline Friedman calls sexual faux powerment. It's a thing that is definitely going to get its own stream because I have feelings about it. But for now, we're going to focus on the one particular aspect of faux powerment, the mountains of importance that get heaped on the humble orgasm. I am going to be a total killjoy and say that orgasms actually aren't all that important. At this point, I am going to pause for a moment for a couple of purposes. One is that I need to stay hydrated because you got to hydrate or dehydrate. I'm talking a lot, carrying it entirely alone. That's one of the things I'm going to miss about having Jacqueline here, is that I don't have anyone to like fill the silence while I water up. I also wanted to check in with the group chat, and I'm glad I did because we've got, let's see. Are you saying that magazines would just do that? Play on our insecurities to get us to buy mags? I am saying that. Thank you for complimenting my water bottle. It has little whales on it. And it was a gift from my beautiful wife, who I love. I don't know if I can make a sticker that says hydrate or dihydrate. I'm pretty sure people have already made those. I don't own that, and I don't want to fight. I will look at making a sticker that says the world is a nightmare and vagina owners can't have anything nice. It'll be like cute and loopy cursive, bearing a horrifying message. Oh my gosh, you do it on a sampler. I love your embroidery guy. This is not what I started the stream for, but I'm glad I'm meeting embroidery folks. I also want to take the second to pause and just let everyone know there's going to be coming up in a moment or two, just like a quick reference to sexual assault. It is not going to be like explicit. We're not going to go into detail. We're not going to dwell on it, but it is going to be mentioned. And that is not a thing that I want to take anyone by surprise. If that's not a thing that's good for you, if you need to mute for like a minute or two, have at it. So that is on the horizon coming at us. If no one has anything else to add in the chat. Well, you are correct. Okay, hydrating, not dehydrating. Let's move on. So, I also did want to stop and say that, like, I don't blanket hate Cosmo. They do good things sometimes. I Googled Cosmo orgasm tips just to see, like, what would come up. And the very first article was called "This is How You Can Orgasm Every Time," which I think is a lie right off the bat. But upon actually reading it, the writer, like, pretty much right away, like, clarified that they don't think that orgasm is, like, the most important part of sex, and made sure to say, like, women and folks with vaginas, which I think is a fun illustration of the fact that sometimes corporations employ people who, like, genuinely mean well and would like to help people more, but are hampered by the fact that they're working for a corporation that needs to keep selling more magazines, and like they're just totally at odds, and there is no ethical consumption. To answer, Nate, wouldn't orgasming that much also be desensitizing? Debatable. I don't know if it's a thing you can strictly get like desensitized to. Like when vibrators started getting big is like a thing that everyone acknowledged were sex toys, because there was a time, like a while, like in the Victorian period, when they were being used as like a medical cure. But once they were starting to be like openly sold as a sexual object, a lot of people were like, you'll desensitize your clitoris. And the thing is, like, I don't think okay, cool. We're going to talk about this right now. I don't think desensitization works the way a lot of people think it does. I think you absolutely can get too reliant on a certain behavior and only be able to enjoy sex either partnered or alone in one particular way, like maybe one position or one type of stimulation. But you, generally speaking, cannot really get like desensitized. Like your clitoris in particular is made of nerves. Its job is to be sensitive. Barring like a traumatic injury, it is generally not going to stop doing that. It can get boring though, like Mary said. And I like that we're already on the page where it's like, honestly, I think having an orgasm every time can get boring, because you're right. Let's get into that. Also, I will take that whale fan art anytime. Thank you. All right, so jumping back in, what the fuck is an orgasm? To quote Wikipedia, the master of all things sexy, orgasm is the sudden discharge of accumulated sexual excitement during the sexual response cycle, resulting in rhythmic muscular contractions in the pelvic region characterized by sexual pleasure. So that's hot, but what does it actually mean? Basically, you are aroused for a while, some manner of stimulation happens, and then at some point you receive sexual pleasure, which can look like many things. But folks with vaginas, particularly the cis women in the crew, have been more or less trained to think of good orgasms as having one very specific look. The magazine covers like Cosmopolitan tell us they should be big and explosive, and whatever the magazines are leaving to the imagination, porn is more than happy to show us. Porn orgasms are huge and loud, and they involve a lot of screaming "fuck yeah" over and over again. Squirting gets in the mix a lot more than it happens in real life for most people. Even on TV and movies, which are usually like a little less explicit depending on what channel you're watching, good sex and orgasms for cis women tend to involve a lot of thrashing and yelling. That shows up in written erotica as well, especially, I think, among younger fan fiction writers for whom, like, visual media and other fan fiction is their primary reference point for sex. Fanfic orgasms are absolutely wild. So we get this kind of endless fictional feedback loop where orgasms look a very specific way, and then we end up feeling weird if our real sexual pleasure doesn't look the same way. The clit would just get Pavloved a bit. I love the chat. Pavlovian conditioning is interesting to look at, though, because I don't want to try to make like a Pavlov comparison on the fly, but I think there is a very real amount of conditioning that, goes into like what we think orgasms are supposed to look like. I'm not going to try to take this further because I'm going to fuck up. So I think a lot of why we end up feeling weird about that is that until pretty fairly recently, and this hasn't gone away at all, there's just a little bit of variety now, is that we had depictions of sexual pleasure that were like largely focused on penetrative sex as the be-all end-all of sexual pleasure, which is a problem that goes back to godforsaken Sigmund Freud, who is my personal enemy for many reasons. Among other questionable beliefs about vaginas, Freud believed that vagina owners had two distinct types of orgasms. Ones which came from the clitoris and ones which came from vaginal penetration. Of these, he believed that penetrative sex was the more mature of the two orgasms, while clitoral orgasms were for those who hadn't really properly grown up. The subtext there is kind of that proper women learn to shut up and make babies and stop pestering their husbands to actually get them off, and women who masturbate and worry about their own pleasure are like childish and quite possibly gay. That's not an exaggeration. The early 20th century is when the gay panic surrounding like same-sex affection and female pleasure really started sweeping Western culture, and it hit hard. But Freud is a tacky Austrian fool, and I hate him, and everything that he says should be disregarded. There's no psychological difference between vaginal and clitoral orgasms, and clinical sexologist Lindsay Doe thinks that there might not even really be a physical difference either. More on that is in a video that I'm going to link to in the description. Like, if you think I get fired up about this, you should see Lindsay Doe go off. But the point is that whatever kind of stimulation gets you off is great and awesome, and you should just keep doing that. And that's also true if what feels good doesn't necessarily result in a giant screaming orgasm. So there's a lot of evidence, both research-based and purely anecdotal, that disproves the idea that orgasms are innately tied to good sex. On the one end of the spectrum, you have people who have experienced orgasms during sexual assaults, which obviously does not mean that that was a good or positive or, fucking consensual experience at all. On the far other end of the spectrum, you have people who are in like loving, possibly committed, maybe monogamous, passionate, adventurous, insert all the positive words you want, relationships with someone who don't usually orgasm when they have sex with them and are completely comfortable with that. Now, it does need to be said that on that other end of people who are like having great sex and not orgasming and are fine with it, myself included, are largely vagina owners. And the importance of the orgasm gap should not be overlooked. We talked about that 2 weeks ago in the hookup culture video in regards to hookups primarily between cishet folks. But it applies pretty broadly across the board. Cishet men are much more likely to be having orgasms than their female counterparts. I wanted to find like a decent article about the orgasm gap to link y'all to so that you could read up more on it for yourselves if you wanted, but there weren't really any that I thought were good. And that's not me being like a snobby sex ed snob, if such a thing can exist. It's just that I think by nature, studying the orgasm gap kind of like flattens human sexuality, and human sexuality is not a thing that tends to be served well by flattening and simplifying it, because if there is anything more varied and complex and absolutely hog wild in the world, I haven't found it yet. Sorry, give me a second while I catch up on the chat. Oh, wow, we really hate Freud. Yeah. I love the enthusiasm of the person who said they would kill Freud, no hesitation. I have great news. He's already dead. Sorry. Okay. So orgasm gap surveys flatten out sexuality in a big way. Most of them are frustratingly cis-centric. There is some research that involves same-sex couples, which is why we know that among both like gay men and lesbians, like the orgasm gap shrinks drastically than between like cis-het male-female couples. Surprise, surprise. But trans and non-binary people are still largely excluded, or at least not specifically mentioned in most of these studies, which makes it basically impossible to address where they fit in that reality. Sidebar, if you are a trans or non-binary individual and you would like to make sure that at least one sex educator is aware of your experiences with orgasms or lack thereof, my inbox is open. And my DMs, and like the least sexy DM orgasm conversation imaginable. Whoo. Also, someone over in the chat is learning that their Harry Potter reference username has been spelled wrong for 10 years, and that is the kind of existential dread that I cannot even imagine. God bless. So then there's also the issue that we've kind of been building up to this entire time. Not everyone's sex life revolves around having an orgasm. The gap is real, yes, and there are a lot of women who are unsatisfied with what their male partners are putting down, and we should talk about that and make their partners do better, for the love of God. But there are also a lot of people for whom the phrase is, I don't usually have an orgasm during sex with my partner, and I have a perfectly satisfying sex life, are both true at the same time, which I think is a big thing that skews a lot of that orgasm gap research, because they could be asking a person like, oh, hey, did you have an orgasm last time you had sex with your partner? And they could be like, oh, no, and be perfectly fine with that. But then that answer still gets bundled into, well, as you can see, there's this massive gap, and it's all bad always. Like, I get it. I'm a sociology student. I understand that when you design surveys, you can rarely account for the entire diversity of human experience. But sometimes it skews your data more badly than others. And I think this is one of them. Hey, over in the sidebar, Laura, my sister had a boyfriend who once fell asleep while eating her out. So there's that. What's up? What's going on? Hi, this is my professional opinion. as a sex educator and a human person, if you are so tired that you are going to fall asleep with a face full of pussy, maybe it's not the best time to have sex. Yeah, that emoji that Nate just dropped in the chat, that's how I feel right now. God, that's a mystery that I'm not sure I want to solve. God, I hope he took a nap after that. Like immediately, well, just don't even wake him up, honestly. Just put a blanket over him and call it a day. If it seems like I'm leaning a little extra heavy onto the vagina haver side of things in this particular stream, that's because I am in fact doing that. There are obviously lots of folks over on the penis squad who have difficulty orgasming, and a lot of what I'm going to say about orgasms not measuring good sex is also going to apply to them, and I hope they hear it. But this is a much more pervasive thing for vagina owners, and that's something that deserves to be recognized because we spend a lot of time worrying about it. Like a lot. Because all those Cosmo covers and the screaming porn stars and the all-consuming fanfic orgasms kind of add up in your head and your conception of normal sexuality, you know? And if your sex life isn't looking like that, it can start to feel like something is wrong with you. That's why our friend Lindsay Doe says she gets so many questions about the elusive vaginal orgasm, and why my inbox is perpetually running over with people wondering how to make their orgasms better, or how to have orgasms differently, or how to tell if they're even having orgasms at all. But when vagina owners are asking the same things over and over and over and over again, you kind of have to start wondering if maybe the problem isn't that people with vaginas are just really bad at having orgasms, but maybe they've been conditioned to expect a very particular sexual response that isn't realistic for many or even most people. And surprise, surprise, if you have been led to suspect that something is wrong with you and your body, you will spend countless dollars on sexy magazines or sex toys or sex supplements, sex coaches, visits to the doctor, trying to figure out why you're so goddamn frigid. Woo! And I'm not saying any of those things are inherently bad, but when you're seeking them out because you've been made to feel insecure about something that isn't a problem, that's when it's bad. Bad fanfic erotica is really funny, though. That's why one of the levels on my Patreon is reading bad erotica every month. That's going to be my last shameless plug for my Patreon, but if you're interested, last month I did read one that was about Ted Cruz and Guy Fieri getting it on in a Flavortown dumpster. My soul will never heal. Woo! So, comrades, what do we do about this? First, we're going to talk about the incredible variety of forms that the human orgasm takes and why vagina owners in particular might have a harder time knowing whether or not they've even had one. I've heard some people say things like, if you have to ask if you've had an orgasm, you haven't had one. Not fucking true, my peeps. Oh, wait. Okay, sorry, just peeping the... Sorry, there seems to be some alarm in the group chat. I'm not sure if it's in reaction to something one person said or me talking about Ted Cruz and Guy Fieri. Anywho's, so I think one of the big things, frankly, that makes it hard to tell if you've had an orgasm is squirting or lack thereof. For a lot of penis owners, telling when you've reached the peak of your sexual response cycle is relatively easy since it's accompanied by ejaculating, which tends to be pretty noticeable. Important to note that this isn't always the case for all penis owners, obviously, particularly, trans women who have been taking estrogen usually find that the erections and ejaculation drop off and stop altogether after a while. But it is a much more noticeable benchmark than what folks over packing vaginas have. I try to shake up the vagina owner, penis owner terminology and just to keep it spicy, but then I'm like, when does it veer into too absurd to practically use? What I had in the outline was over in the vaginosphere, and then I was like, that sounds almost bad. Oof. We're not doing that. Anyway, so whereas ejaculation for folks with vaginas, I mean, it obviously does not happen every time. It is more commonly known as squirting, if y'all are familiar with that lovely term. It's basically the same physically. It's a large rush of fluid coming on out from the urethra. It's made of almost all of the same like organic material that ejaculate from a penis is, obviously minus sperm. But it definitely does not happen every time. There's a lot of debate about whether or not it's a thing that like people can train themselves to do or learn to do every time. Like some vagina owners have like a bucket list, maybe a fuck it list. Am I right, ladies? I hate myself. Of like ejaculating at least once. I don't like, I appreciate, you know, the intent to like explore yourself and like do new things. But as this whole stream is about, I think that trying to make yourself have one particular bodily reaction to things is bad. If you are a squirter, you are a squirter. If you are not, please don't go out of your way trying to make that happen. Hey, Nate, listen, your corny jokes are terrible. Mine are also terrible. I get them from you because you're my father. Yeah, I do appreciate the suggestion that we replace. See, okay, so vaginal ejaculation sounds boring. Squirting has been co-opted by porn. So from now on, we're just going to call it the Baja Blast. Yeehaw. If you are a natural Baja Blaster, good for you. If you have not done it, that's fine. Maybe you will one day, but you don't need to go actively chasing that Baja Blast. Oofed. Anyway, so for folks who are packing vaginas, orgasms aren't always so obvious. If you recall that very sexy Wikipedia definition, orgasm is discharged sexual excitement. It is characterized by contractions of the pelvis and sexual pleasure. Basically, all your horniness builds up and pays off. Your pelvic floor muscles are going to do some things that you have limited control over, and it probably feels good. That could look 1,000 different ways to 1,000 different people. We need to have a moment of appreciation for what I call small orgasms, the ones that don't come with all the frantic moaning and thrusting. For a lot of people, climax is just a lot of buildup and then like one quick shudder and your knee jerks and you're done. And that's it. And that's fine. And that's normal. Oh God, there's some discussion of the Baja Blast over here. We're not doing that. We haven't even started on the idea that like some people think they're supposed to have like the exact same intensity orgasm every time. That's not true. Every time you have sex with yourself or with a partner is going to be different. Why do you expect the result to be the same? Even if you recreate the conditions in which you have sex perfectly every day, which would be not to yuck your yum, but very weird. You're not going to be in the same headspace every time or feeling the same feelings. There is a huge psychological component to arousal, which means you're not going to have the same orgasm or even have an orgasm necessarily. And we're going to get to that. All orgasms are good orgasms as long as they're happening in consensual situations, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to go a step beyond that now and say all pleasure is good pleasure. There are a lot of reasons why someone might have some difficulty jumping headlong into the screaming orgasm pleasure volcano. And we're going to talk about some of them. A big one is a really long plateau phase. That's the part in the sexual response cycle that happens after kind of the initial arousal when your body kind of perks up and goes, ooh, is something happening? And after you've started doing something about that, doing some kind of stimulation, and things are kind of increasing, the pleasure starts building up as your body goes through all the stages of arousal with the blood flowing to your genitals and your heart rate increasing and your brain making the happy juice, etc. That sense of pleasure is supposed to keep kind of moving upward until it peaks in a climax. But the plateau phase refers to when it just plateaus out and kind of flatlines for a bit, you know, like when you're cranking it and you're kind of at that point where it doesn't even like not feel good, but you're like, this is kind of taking a while. Does this seem like this is taking, I feel like this is taking just like a little too long. Oh, sorry, gonna pop over. Yeah, okay, I think Nate's saying, I think that's what I was trying to get at, re-desensitizing the mental part. Yes, like you, yeah, okay, so I don't believe the body can get desensitized as much. It can be trained to certain behaviors, but your brain can get so desensitized like so fast. I had a person who sent me an ask on Tumblr, obviously, I don't know why I like blanked. I was like, where the fuck do people send me questions? Someone who sent me an ask that was like, oh, so my boyfriend and I keep like finding a new sex thing we like, and then we just do that nonstop, and then it gets boring again. And then we find a new thing and we do that nonstop, and then it gets boring again. What do we do? And I was like, maybe stop doing the same thing over and over until it gets boring. You know, you're kind of like beating the horse to death there. Like maybe like mix it up. Variety is the spice of life. Exactly. You know, you can't just like put one behavior on repeat forever. I think I used like a Spotify analogy. Like if you just purposely play the same song over and over and over again until you hate it, that song's very possibly ruined forever. If you put all of your music on shuffle and that song just shows up sometimes, you can be like, hell yeah, I enjoy this a lot every time it shows up. That's how I feel about Africa by Toto. I don't want any of you to compare Africa by Toto to sex ever again. That felt wrong. Okay. So plateau phase, the good folks over at I Heart Female Orgasm, which is a group that I love with all my heart, recommend powering through either by just continuing on until you get there or by like switching it up for a little bit. Maybe like stop the kind of stimulation you're doing and like touch another part of the body, switch positions, just like make out for a while. If you've got a partner or a sexy pillow, no, please don't, no. I am a little skeptical of that one though for like a couple reasons. Like sometimes you or your partner just get tired and that's okay. Carpal tunnel syndrome is real and real unpleasant and your clit is sensitive. Like sometimes it's just not going to feel good if you've been rubbing that shit for too long, and that is how it is. And that's okay. There's also the fact that stimulating the vulva area can be a little bit like coaxing a skittish Mustang in a horse movie into trusting you. Like if you make one wrong move and change anything up too fast, it's going to like bolt back to the open plains and you're never going to see that bad boy again. Can you believe I just talk about how orgasms are like wild horses and put it on the internet for all of my potential future employers to see free of charge? Ta-da! What else was anyone doing tonight? It's not possibly going to get better than this. Anyway, there's also that psychological component of sexual arousal that we've talked about a fair amount already, I think. Hooray. The chat preempted the outline, which is amazing. There's the fact that a lot of us learn to have sex in less than optimal conditions for even really like learning how to have an orgasm and like freely let ourselves do that. Like so much of sex is a practiced behavior. And if you didn't like learn that in an environment where having like a big old wild orgasm was ideal, you know, maybe you're going to struggle with that. I don't know about y'all, but your boy figured out how to touch yourself by reading DC Comics fan fiction, then putting that into practice in a bedroom that was situated right between my mom over here and my little sister over here. So like, you're not going to get loud. That's for damn sure. I don't know what oversharing means anymore. I just say things. Jesus Christ. I'm sorry. Anyway, a lot of us first explore our sexual selves in settings like our family home or a dorm room where we have to self-monitor and hold ourselves back from moving around too much or making any noise or breathing too heavily or really even letting ourselves feel too much. You know, you can get in a habit where you like let yourself build up and then pull away and stop right before you go too far for fear of doing something that you maybe don't have total control over and getting hurt or walked in on. There are also all kinds of physical factors that can make it difficult to have an orgasm or, you know, if not difficult, uncomfortable or like otherwise implausible, ranging from certain medications to surgeries to body dysphoria. Some people find the orgasm much more easily alone than with a partner or vice versa. Some people don't like to be on the receiving end of sex at all, but find that doing things to and for their partners is all the sexual satisfaction they need. What I'm getting at here is that there are many reasons why we don't need to hype orgasms up as the pinnacle of sex. I'm going to pop in with the chat. Okay, wait, whoever is calling me a horse girl, not true. I'm horse girl adjacent. I grew up in Montana and I can't help that. My sister is the horse girl. Learning to have sex in less than optimal conditions. Big fucking mood. You can't hear me, but I'm snapping. I appreciate your snapping. There we go. Okay, yeah, I'm seeing some relating here. I'm seeing the phrase "my pussy is a stallion," which I fucking love. That resonates. Next tattoo. It's gonna go right here. There's gonna be like a big old horse jumping out of a pussy. No, God, Christ. So what do we do instead of hyping up orgasm as the most important part of sex, my dear comrades? We appreciate pleasure in every form it takes, no matter what it looks like, and we acknowledge that it's okay to just find something that feels good and then keep doing that thing until you feel satisfied, regardless of whether or not you met the dictionary definition of an orgasm. If you're enjoying what's happening, your brain is going to pump out the happy juice regardless. Your brain doesn't care how much your pelvic floor muscles contract. It just knows that it feels good. And in a vicious self-perpetuating cycle, worrying about having an orgasm is actually making you much less likely to have an orgasm or even really enjoy sex at all. Hang on. It's weird how like just talking for not even an hour yet has completely like wiped my voice out. Like it's not like I was talking at all earlier today. I've been like my big social outing earlier today was going to Target to buy some milk. It gives up so easily now. Anyway. So worrying too much about whether or not you're having the orgasm is going to make it a lot less likely to happen, you know, because instead of letting yourself be in the moment and feel present and appreciate the ways you're being touched, feeling good, you're like mentally checking the clock and wondering what's taking so long. And if you've got a partner, you're worrying that your partner is going to get bored of this and blaming yourself, stressing out about it, wondering what's wrong with you and maybe you should just do like some big fake orgasm. Maybe you should have taken the tips from Cosmopolitan magazine or something. And that's just like the fastest way to make sure you're not going to have an orgasm is getting yourself all worked up about having it. I call that kind of like a goal-oriented sex. Like here is the secret sex tip that the sex switch, I'm going to pass on to you. There is no goal to sex other than everyone involved having a good time. That does not have to involve an orgasm for a lot of reasons that I feel like I've already enumerated on. Like, if everyone involved feels good, you did good. And that should be the only goal. Sometimes people do it to get pregnant, but that is not my area and I cannot speak to it. So to recap, if you feel like there is something wrong with how you do sex because it doesn't look like what media tells you it should look like, you should take a minute and ask yourself who's profiting off that insecurity. The answer is almost universally shitty old white men, and we don't want them to profit from anything, right? Right. Oh no, over on the side, I once had a guy ask if I had come yet while he was inside of me. It honestly left me wondering if he even knew what an orgasm was. That's the thing. Like, a lot of people just don't know what that orgasm's supposed to look like because there's no model of like what real orgasms are. So it's like, is this it? Did you do it? You here? Are we done? This is why we need healthier models of sex, I think, than like porn and whatever you can see on whatever like the sexy TV shows are these days. Game of Thrones, I believe, has some fairly explicit sex scenes. I, of course, don't watch television because I'm a 6,000-year-old bog hag who lives under a rock. Also, media portrays straight sex, and straight people tend to be bad at sex. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm no heterophobe. I've known some straight people who have perfectly fine sex lives, but I think there is definitely an encouraging of cishet men to be kind of incurious about what their female partner's sexuality looks like. There's kind of a running joke that I never really understood that like vaginas are like difficult to figure out and like they're mysterious and it's impossible and like, ooh, it's just like too much work to give a cis woman an orgasm. And I I'm not saying that's like a line of humor that exists to get straight men off the hook, but like, yeah. Interesting, because I have heard the difference between sex and not sex is that sex is partners trying to have an orgasm, and that not sex is everything else. Now I'm interested by that, because like when we say not sex, are we just talking about like literally every other human activity on Earth? Because that's like a very broad way of splitting those things up, I guess. Is it weird that I don't really want to try penetrative sex or orgasm because it seems stressful and not good for my crib muscles, but I'm happy to pleasure a partner? No, okay, Mary, as I tell people all the time on my blog, if that is your normal, that's normal. Like rock and roll. There are tons of people who just prefer doing this. I'm trying to find like the way to explain this. It doesn't sound either like vaguely porny or like hopelessly dry. Like there are lots of people who just really enjoy being kind of in a service position, doing things like to their partner and like being involved sexually, but not necessarily like having their own body stimulated in that way. And if that is what you're into and what you are comfortable with and like what sounds reasonable and good to you, hell yeah, rock on. There is no wrong way to be into sex, as long as, again, like literally as long as everything is consensual and above board. Do what works for you, man. Write your own sexual script. Oh, Roman's here. Heart hands. I'm so glad you've joined us. Okay, back to gimmick, string of letters. Okay, so like making out versus sex. So the difference between like sex and then like not sex activities being trying to have an orgasm. I don't know, because see, like speaking from personal experience, right. Okay, other intimate and sensual activities that weren't sex unless orgasm was the goal. I mean, like, that's the, like, I mean, there's obviously, like, a I guess, in my experience, I've never thought, like, oh, like, clearly the biggest difference between, like, making out with someone and having sex with them is that an orgasm might happen. Like, the difference is that, like, there are genitals in my face, and probably there's some nudity happening, and it's, like, a considerably bigger physical and time commitment than making out with someone, you know, like, and like an orgasm might have, like, right off the bat, I'm one of those people who usually does not orgasm with partners and really does not expect to. So like when I'm going into sex, I'm like, I'm not going, yes, the difference between this and those other activities is that I will have an orgasm, because that's not something I expect from partnered sex, frankly. And I tell people that right off the bat, like, hey, listen, I don't really come with partners. That's fine. Do your worst. My dad's watching this. Anyway, so like, it depends. Like, I think there are definitely things that set like sex aside from other intimate activities. I don't know if like the possibility of an orgasm is one of those things. You're right. Nudity is not inherently sexual either. That's, it's almost like everything just exists on a continuum of experiences, and they can all just happen in whatever order we want, and they only have the value that we assign to them. Spoiler alert, that is going to be the topic of next week's stream, which I'm going to hype up in a second here. This is good. I like that there's like discussion happening around this one. Like, one of the things I'm most excited about with the chat is that like we can spin off into like things that I hadn't thought of. And I feel like we haven't really gotten into that to its fullest potential. I like this. This is the dialogue. This is my favorite way to like talk about things and teach. I always thought that any genital touching meant sex. Maybe. That's another big one we're going to get into next week. Oh, yeah, there are people who get off from popping balloons, and I wish I hadn't already known about that, and I wish you hadn't brought it into this space. Like, there's also people for whom, like I know folks who identify as asexual for whom, like, kink practices are their entire sexuality, you know, like, being like tied up or like, you know, hit with a whip or something. Like, there's no genital touching there, but that is their expression of sexuality. There's also like phone sex, y'all. There's sexting. Like, that does it for some people. Sidebar, this is the reason ASMR is considered creepy and sexual, because the whole whispering women is big sexy, apparently. Yeah, I don't know a lot about ASMR. It is definitely a sex thing for some people. So yeah, I think sex can be defined in many ways. That is going to be a big part of next week's stream where I talk about queering virginity and how we decide which sexual behaviors are considered like valid and count as not only losing your virginity, but like having sex in general, because obviously you have to have sex to lose your virginity. And the ways that like queer people and cishet people define virginity is like wildly different. And I think that really like challenges everything we know about sex and also virginity as a concept that means anything. And I'm really excited to talk about that with y'all. Paralyzed people might not feel their genitals but can get off. Very true. I was doing some research around this lately for Batman related reasons. Don't at me, but because Barbara Gordon is a character who's in a wheelchair and does have, romantic and sexual partners. And it's very interesting. I got very deep into this. Folks who are paralyzed in such a way that they maybe cannot feel their genitals or like feel that stimulation can, I'm going to forget the word, but they can sometimes form like such a sense of other parts of their body that stimulation there can like transmit into an orgasm, which is fucking incredible. Our bodies are amazing. And if not an orgasm, like sexual satisfaction, since as we've established, orgasm is not the be all end all. Sex is anything where Genuine's pony is playing in the background. Ah, Christ. Sex is whatever sexy background music you want it to be is. Ooh, I would say genital touching with the intent of sexual pleasure. Otherwise, getting a pap smear counts as sex. Ooh, that's a good catch. Neuroplasticity is fucking weird, but it's also awesome, and bodies are awesome. They do a lot of really cool shit, and we should talk about it more. And by we, I mean me, right here in this stream every Saturday. God, this is a good chat. Okay. I'm actually mostly... We really went right off the rails right as I was about to finish where I was in the outline, which is amazing. So my advice to y'all is just kick it. Enjoy the son of a gun, because how you feel physically and emotionally before, during, and after sex is a much better indication of whether or not it's good than trying to hit a highly specific set of fickle biological functions. And that is my spiel. Remember, orgasms are like horses. They come in many different shapes and varieties, but all of them are powerful and must be respected. Yeah. Oh, did I lock Arcane out? I did have to lock Arcane out because he was being a hooligan boy today. He kept knocking over like books, and I was very worried about this very tall pile of books in particular getting sent flying while I was trying to talk about why orgasms are like horses. So he's been outside this whole time, which I feel a little bit bad about. Hang on, let me see if he's sitting outside the door screaming, which he might be. Okay. He actually wasn't, which is vaguely sinister. He could be anywhere. He's probably off doing sins. So, what does Arcane think of horses? Arcane has never met a horse, and Arcane is probably never going to meet a horse because he's an inside boy. And we don't let horses in here. He would probably fear them. Orgasms are like horses sticker. Yeah, we can do that. But if we were gonna make an orgasms are like horses sticker, would you want it to be the elaborate, easily frightened off onto the plane and never to be seen again? Or orgasms are like horses, they come in many varieties and all should be respected and feared? Drop your vote in the chat. I'm clearly not making the first one. It's ludicrously too long. Cows are scary. I grew up around a lot more cows than horses, honestly. Orgasms are to horses, what sneezes are to frogs. Oh, that's bad. I want you to explain, but I don't. I also, hang on, I have something for you guys. He was trying to crawl into my toilet. Oh, God. Oh, God. Okay, hey, it's okay. You want to go on the floor? Okay, bye. Okay, there was your arcane cameo for the evening. He struggled mightily to escape. Before I wind down, explanation: if orgasms are like horses and sneezes are like fire. No, that doesn't make any sense. That's not an explanation. I don't understand the analogy. Yeah, the boy was here. I'm glad you all like the boy. Before I wind down, does anyone have any closing questions and or comments and or miscellany about orgasms and the importance thereof? Yeah. I just noticed that you have it. Oh God, I feel weird having read that out loud. I do have it. It's right over there. There's my dimp. Thank you for appreciating it. Cool. Okay. We did good work tonight here, everybody. Orgasms are not the all-important thing that the media wants you to think you are. Oh, what is my tattoo of? Okay, so this is, am I going to be able to get a good angle? This is my bi pride symbol. It's got, your bi colors there. And it is a quote from Keenan Lonsdale when he came out back in like 2017, I think, that says, "I've become bored of being insecure." I got it right around the time my mental health was shit. So I slapped together. I was like, look, I'm like super bi and like I'm done being insecure and stuff. And then I wasn't. And I did like 6 months of like hard working on myself. And then I was bored of being insecure and I was a much better, cooler, happier, wholer person. Yay. Don't I have a baked beans tattoo? God, I fucking wish that was me. Makes sense, but also it's like when I learned about electrons and clouds rather than orbit, what sex is. I would love to hear that elaborated on. Don't touch your face so much, you'll get acne. You can't stop me from touching my face. It's one of my adorable habits. Cool, but God, we don't summon the ghost of Cool Beans in this chat anymore. Y'all know I'm partial to that, and it fucks me up. Cool Beans boy is somewhere out there even now riding his stupid razor scooter around and saying cool beans and dressing like a lesbian and being so beautiful I can't look directly at him. I hate that man. He makes me so angry. Lukewarm beans. There we go. Exorcise the beans. Remove yeet the beans right off this mortal coil. Warm beans is just chili. Yeah. Can we start saying chili? Oh, okay. Accurate models of electrons are in probability clouds around the atom's nucleus, so it's hard to say exactly what the electron is or what sex is. Yes, I like that. Okay, cool. I don't know anything about science, but I feel like an apt comparison was just made. It is difficult to pinpoint exactly what the sex... Yeah, okay, so if y'all enjoyed this conversation about what is sex and what is sexuality, you should really be here next week, because that is, like, I get really hype about all of these topics, but defining what is sex and what counts is something that I have spent a good chunk of my, I spent a good chunk of my undergrad researching that. It is something that I have presented research on at the Midwestern Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, Asexual College Conference back in February 2017. February 2018. It's 2019. God, time is fake. Hey, also, sidebar, I am not selling thirst pics of my dad on Patreon. That we're not doing that. We're not going to do that. Everything is sex except sex, which is power, and power is just sex. Ask yourself who's screwing you. Yes, that's the only definition of sex we need, is the definition that Janelle Monáe gave us, our Lord and Savior. Oh, God, there's a fuck lot of people who know things about electrons in this chat. I didn't realize I had so many science people following me. I guess it made sense, because you should balance out, your disciplines. So, science is going to be drawn to whatever this is. I guess. But I'm glad all of y'all understand electrons better than I do. Congrats. Okay, listen. Writing a science fantasy story does not require knowing anything about actual science, my dude. I can just be like, and the dragons work because I said so, and that's how it is. Can we get a hot dad calendar? Oh, God. God, no. Oh, Roman, I'm the reason you stan Janelle so much. Good. She deserves all the stans. Oh, this is good. We got like a good mix of, oh, God. Hey, guys. Hey, guys. Hey, guys. Every time you call my dad hot, his ego swells and he becomes more powerful and a bigger jock. Don't do this to me. I'm the one who has to live with him in real life. If science fantasy did science, Star Wars wouldn't be a thing. Probably. I've only seen one Star Wars movie. I'm not qualified to talk about it at all. All I know is that John Boyega and Oscar Isaac and Daisy Ridley, real hot. That is a power trio directly correlated to my bisexual tastes. Hang on, the cat. Earlier you said your dad was watching. You just meant Nate, right? Yes, absolutely. My actual dad is definitely not watching because he doesn't know about this because we haven't spoken in 9 years. Let's see. Was that a congrats on not talking to my dad in 9 years? God, that's fucking funny. I hope so. Don't correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, okay, cool. Okay. Who needs a dad, am I right? Oh, this bitch. I feel like this haircut screams my father doesn't talk to me though, right? Like, if I ever did stand-up, I would just get up there and open with like, so as you can see, I am gay and desperately lacking attention from a male authority figure. Oh, Christ. Who needs a dad when you have a cat? That's where it's at. I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but it worked out. Good God. This is such a chatty group chat tonight. I love this. I am out of water, though, which means this cannot go on forever. Oh, we're chanting cat dad. I have a sticker over on my mirror that says dog grandma, and I don't know exactly how I'm the grandma in that scenario now. Because, like, that would have to imply that, like, I had a middle child that, like, had adopted the dog that I'm the grandma of. But oh well. It's because we're up to 20 people. We've had a pretty consistent, like, 20-ish people every week, actually. Like, this isn't new. And this clearly is not the full 20 people talking in the chat. Like, hey, people who are just lurking, I appreciate you also. I think the next, like, push is going to be like, let's see if we can get up to 30 people. Tell your friends. This is a fun thing to do in the evening, right? We just dropped to 19. I scared somebody off. Fuck. Sorry, everybody. The chat is evolving. It's growing stronger. Geez. All right. So I'm going to start winding down on this. So next week, Queering Virginity, a thing that I've done many times. If you would like to see me do it in person, and you are in the Detroit area, that is going to be an option because I'm going to be doing it live at a sex ed convening in Detroit on April 6th. If you're in the area, you should message me. It's free to attend, and we'll give you lunch. Oh, God. Oh, God. Okay. Sorry, Nate is asking. Yeah, Nate, you can come on a stream. You're not doing the commercial breaks because I don't know what that would look like. We could do a jam session. Bring your guitar. I'll bring my uke over. We can play some Fleetwood Mac or something. That'll be fun. So that's what's coming up, both on the stream and IRL. I do want to remind, okay, so next week is Queering Virginity. The week after that, we are going to have to take a week off, which is very sad. But the good news is that there are 5 Saturdays in March. So even taking a weekend off, you're still going to get 4 whole streams. So rock and roll. Oh, God. Oh, God. Okay, no, the dads are getting too powerful in the chat. I'm going to wind down before Nate goes, like, super Saiyan mode. And that is going to be it for the night. I love you all. Orgasms are like horses. Remember that. Cling to that nugget of wisdom. I will see you next time. Goodbye, cool kids. Yes, we're going to end the